Good morning, Carbon School District. Today is May 6th, 2020, School Dismissal Day 33. It's a beautiful day today, and excited to hear how things are going out there now that we have begun transition into May activities, and wanted to share with you a concept that was first put forward based on research around the world that was put together by the behavioral psychologists that are listed there. A couple of them also known as the BS guys, standing for behavioral science. We saw a video of them talking about frames before at Christmas time with the children. So these are the same guys who wrote Crucial Conversations, Crucial Accountability, as well as the book Influencers, and they provide professional development to companies and all over the world who can afford them. But they have put forward this pathway to action, and it's a very important finding in behavioral psychology. The first part of it is what we see and hear. These things are happening all around us all the time, all day long. We are seeing and hearing things. All that data is going into our brains and being processed there. That data matches up and confronts our beliefs and our stories that we tell ourselves. So whatever our beliefs are and the stories we tell ourselves about that data is what produces an emotion inside of us. Now, those emotions could be positive or negative, but those emotions are what lead to the outcome. Now, the outcome is not, according to the research, dependent on what you see and hear. There's actually no relationship between the outcome of your actions and what you see and hear. What we see and hear filters through our beliefs and stories, which then creates an emotion. And that emotion is what determines our actions and the outcome. So we're going to watch this very short clip about this researcher named Adelbert Ames. This was in 1934 when Dr. Ames put this forward, and so we'll watch that for just a minute.
Lights, camera, perception. When you were little and some big kids pushed you around, did you ever fantasize about becoming bigger all of a sudden? Well, I did, and now I can, at the Exploratorium, San Francisco's Science Museum. How did I do it? The easy way, by manipulating your perception. When you first saw me, I appeared to be normal size because you couldn't see the rest of the room. But as the lights came up and the camera pulled back, your brain performed a new instantaneous analysis. It now saw me as small. It added up all the visual information it had about my size and the size and shape of the room. And then it added in everything it knew from experience about the usual shape of rooms, that they're rectangular and have right angles. So when I walked over here, your brain was convinced I was growing incredibly large because there was no other perceptual explanation, even though it wasn't logical. Let's look at it again, only this time from a different perspective. The room is not rectangular at all. It's totally distorted. There are no right angles anywhere. So that makes this clock, which is large and oval, look the same as that clock, which is small and circular, from your other perspective. The floor slopes upward, and as you can see, the ceiling slopes downward. So I'm not getting larger at all. You're just misperceiving my size because you think that you're the same distance from me when I'm over here as you are from me when I'm over there. But in fact, I'm twice as far away.
So this circle represents the truth, you know, the actual ultimate truth of what is going on around us. And if that's so, according to the research, these two dots may represent how many facts we actually have. What we can actually see and hear only represents a small portion of what's actually going on around us. So we are making up all the rest of the information. It's just being made up. Uh, just like in the Ames room, based on our perspective, we see things differently than they maybe actually are. So taking that into consideration, it's according to this pathway to action, there's only one place in this pathway where we have ultimate control. We don't always have control over what we see and hear, the data that comes in to us, the situation that we're in. But we do control our beliefs and our stories. What we believe about what we see, the stories we tell about what we see and hear, that is something we do control. Then, of course, that leads to the emotions, which then leads to the action that we're going to take. Dr. David R. Hawkins, as mentioned before, has a list of emotions that are, based on his research, divided into positive and negative. The bottom half are the negative, the top half are the positive. So some beliefs and stories that we tell ourselves lead us to anger. Some of the beliefs and stories we tell ourselves lead us to fear, especially at a time like this with the coronavirus. But some of the beliefs and stories we tell ourselves about the same data could lead us to courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, or love. That makes all the difference in the action that we take and the outcome of what's going on around us. So a quick experience that describes this is I was at a high school graduation and I was sitting up at the front in front of all of the graduates. I was sitting next to a colleague of mine who was a special ed director, and she was watching the students, and there was one student in particular who had a cell phone in her hand, and she was texting and it appeared to be she was obsessed with this phone. Right in the middle of the ceremony, there were speeches, songs, and all kinds of things going on, and this girl was not paying attention to one bit of it. Now, my colleague, this didn't bother me very much, but my colleague was extremely bothered. She was agitated. She was moving back and forth in her seat, and she couldn't stop mumbling about what this girl was doing. She was just about to get up and do something about it and tell this girl to put her phone away when the girl stood up in the middle of the graduation ceremony and started walking away. Oh, my colleague was blown away. She says, "Oh, this is the most embarrassing and this is incredibly uh, troubling that this student would do this kind of thing." Well, uh, it wasn't very long before the student came back and she was hand in hand with a student who was all dressed up in the cap and gown, coming late. The student had Down syndrome, and we found out later was completely petrified of joining the procession. And this girl had been texting the mom, and the mom had been texting her saying, he doesn't want to join, and do you think maybe you could come and help him? And she didn't even hesitate. She got up and ran over and grabbed him. She brings him back, sits him down in her chair, and she sits on the ground. Now, we saw and heard some data, and we told ourselves a story about what was going on, and that had to do with darn millennials uh, can't stay away from their phones, when the actual truth was that this girl was such an amazing, outstanding person that she put someone else's needs in front of her own. Now, we could have told ourselves that story from the beginning. The action that was just about to be taken was based on a belief in a story that wasn't true, which led to an emotion which was negative, and the action was about to be negative. Instead, in an instant, when we saw what was happening, our beliefs and stories changed, which produced a whole different positive emotion, and the action that was taken actually had to do with thanking the girl, and she received uh, a great little gift basket in appreciation for what she had done. Now we're in the midst of coronavirus, COVID-19. Um, that's what we see. That's what we hear. We are in school dismissal. Uh, the outcome, the actions that we take, we don't know. What are the actions going to be? What things are we going to do? Um, well, that's going to depend on our emotions. Are our emotions positive or negative? And if they're positive, we're going to take an action that will lead to something positive. If they're negative, vice versa. So, how do we control it? Well, the power lies in our beliefs and our stories. What's going to be our belief regarding coronavirus and school dismissal? What stories are we going to tell ourselves? That's where the power is. That's where we can control the pathway to action. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. We hear daily of stories of amazing teachers who are reaching out to students, writing personal notes to them, calling them, conferencing with them, helping them in all kinds of ways. Thank you, thank you. Hopefully we can continue that right up to the end. These kids deserve it. They need meaningful activities, and they need to know that their teachers and the others who work with them, that they care about them, and that we would do anything to help them. Let's manage our beliefs and stories so that we can have positive outcomes. Thank you.